This call is now being recorded.
Right. So good morning, you all again. We are starting today with we're continuing the exercises I started last class. And this one is about relative pronouns. Okay, so we have some sentences here, 10 sentences. And I would like you to decide whether the pronoun in boldface type is a subject pronoun or an object pronoun. Let's start from the facts. The fact is that all the pronouns in boldface type are relative pronouns. So if they are relative, it means they establish a relationship with another item, with another element in the sentence, okay? Some sentences here are structured as clausal sentences. Some of them are canonical and some are non-canonical. So you have to work them out. If they are not canonical, you find it necessary, okay? It's not mandatory that you will always turn the sentence into canonical, because sometimes it's kind of easy. But if it gets too hard, I suggest you to turn it into canonical clauses and analyze the relationship, the kind of relationship that's taking place between the pronoun and the elements of the sentence. As you already know, a subject pronoun is a pronoun that is in a relationship with the subject. It's referring back to the subject, whereas an object pronoun establishes a relationship with the object. Okay, so we call it objective or object pronoun. Okay, let's do the first one, and then I'll ask you to be solving the other 9 items with me. Taking the first case, do you know the girl who I danced with? I want to know this who. What element in the sentence is the relative pronoun who referring to? To the subject or to the object? Well, first of all, let's find the subject and the object. And my question is it easy to analyze an interrogative? Let me put more zoom here. Is it easy to analyze an interrogative sentence? What should I do? How many clauses are there here in number 1?
Maybe 2.
We have 2. And how do you find them? We have 2 verb capsules, know and danced. Okay, so do you know the girl is clause number 1. And who I danced with is clause number 2. Now, we should, first of all, get rid of this interrogative structure. How would you get rid of this interrogative structure and turn these non-canonical clauses into canonical? I danced with clause number 2. Who is a subordinator, okay? And do you know the girl? Instead of having only one period, an interrogative period, we could split this into 2 periods. How would it be? I danced with
the girl.
The girl. Affirmative. I danced with the girl. Do you know who? Does it make sense in standard English? Do you know who?
No, not that much.
Do you know? What pronoun could I use here instead?
Her.
Do you know her? Or if you, oh, teacher, I would like to have two canonical clauses. Okay, you know her. You know her. Affirmative. You know her. Okay. Now, let's not concentrate too much in this second period. Let's analyze this first one. The first one has a subject, a verb, and an object. Where are they? The subject is I. The verb is danced. So, subject in blue, danced is the verb in red, with is a preposition, and we have the girl. Now, what is the function of the girl?
It's the object.
It's the object. Direct or indirect?
Indirect.
Indirect because of with. Okay, with is a preposition. So let's use the same color standard I used in the other exercise. Let's put the object, the indirect object, in purple, and with the preposition in green. Right. Now take a look at the second sentence. Her is a pronoun. So the function of her is to take the place of a noun. Which noun? Do you know? The girl? You see? So, or do you know her? Or do you know who she is? So the original sentence, going back, who? Now my question is who referring back to I or to the girl?
To the girl.
To the girl. Okay, so let's paint them with the same color. Now, you know that the girl from our previous analysis is the object. So who is a subject pronoun or an object pronoun? What is it?
An object pronoun.
Yeah. Object. Okay. Now, I'd like you to do the same with the second one and maybe share your strategy with us. Felipe, would you do the second and share your strategy with us? If you would like to share your screen, it's no problem. Do you have the file there?
I do.
Okay, so if you would like to share your screen, I'll stop my presentation, right?
Okay.
So let's see Felipe's strategy, and let's take a look. And if you have questions, we can discuss, okay?
Okay, just a minute.
Girls, Raissa and Islani, do you have a way to share your screens as well?
I'll try.
Okay.
So, number 2, right?
Yeah, number 2.
I guess I have I just have another strategy to identify if the subject is either if the pronoun is either the subject or the object. And I guess that analyzing the sentence that way is a little bit harder, you know. But
yeah, that's the hard way. Okay, so let's see your strategy.
I mean, actually, it's not exactly a strategy. I either analyze the sentence, the
It's
ideas
not
based
number
on
two,
the sentence.
Felipe. No, number two. Sorry,
Is it number 2 or number 3?
number two. I did number one. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
So there it is. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, let's try to do it like you did. Okay. So who danced with me? One sentence. Yeah, we have one clause, right? And do you know the girl? Okay.
Yeah.
And we can transform this into a positive sentence, into a canonical structure, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have you know the girl.
Okay. Yeah, you were doing a very good strategy. Yeah.
Okay, in this case, in the first sentence, we have who danced with me, and we can clearly replace the pronoun who for a subject pronoun, because it wouldn't make sense to say her danced with me.
Yeah,
We
great. We learned from
substitute.
grammar books, yeah, that we should never start a sentence with object pronouns.
Yeah, right. If we said the girl danced with me like this in a positive sentence, you know the girl danced with me. It wouldn't make any sense to replace the girl in this case by her and say her
Mm-hmm.
danced with me. What makes sense? What makes sense is to say she danced with me, and then in this case
Mm-hmm.
we can. In this case, we notice that she is an is a subjective pronoun, and then we can
Great.
assume that the relative pronoun in this case is replacing a subject pronoun. Okay, so do you know the girl who danced with me is uh, actually who danced with me is a clause in which who would be replaced by she.
She. Mm-hmm. And if you can replace by she, for sure it's a subject pronoun.
Pronoun, yeah.
Okay, so in the first item we have object, and in the second one subject. So let me go again to my file.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll put here subject pronoun. Girls, did you get his explanation? Do you have any questions about what Felipe has done? Is this okay?
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm sharing the screen again. So Raisa, was that you who said that you were going to try, yeah, to share your screen, yeah? So I'll do number 3 and then you do number 4, okay? Could be like that. And I have talked to you last class. I would appreciate if you could speak in English, but if you feel it's easier for you to explain in Portuguese some part of the content, that would be, well,
So,
I'd rather have you speak
sorry.
in Portuguese than speaking nothing. Yes. So let's
Can
go
you
to number.
repeat? It's
Yes.
freezing.
No, I'm just asking you if you would be able to do number 4. I'll do number 3 right now, and then get ready to do number 4, to share your screen in number 4, okay? Let's go to number 3 first. We have that here. That is also a relative pronoun. Let's see the sentence here. The apples that are lying on the table are bad. So we have two pieces of information here. We have two clauses. The apples are lying on the table. This is number one. And the apples are bad. You see? It's one thing and the other. The apples that are lying on the table are bad. So clause number one. The apples that are lying on the table are bad. Now I want to know what does this that refer to? Is this that referring to what? Oops, sorry. Let me go back here. Okay, the apples that are lying on the table are bad. Let's find the two clauses. The apples are lying on the table. Forget the that. I dropped the that, okay? I crossed it out. Now, the apples are bad. You see that the apples is the element that happens in both sentences, in both clauses, sorry. So what kind of pronoun should I use instead of the apples here? Them or they? You are shy.
They.
Yes, they. They are bad. They is a subject or an object here in the second clause. They are bad. Is it the subject? Considering this clause here, is they the subject or the object? They are bad. The apples are bad. Where is the subject? The apple.
Object.
Okay, think with me. They are bad. What are bad? The apples. Forget the first part. Let's concentrate in the second part here. The apples are bad. Where is the subject?
The apples.
The apples. What kind of a pronoun can I use instead? They.
They. Yeah.
So they is an object or subject pronoun?
It's a
If
subject.
if they plays the role of a subject, it's a subject pronoun. Now let's go back to the original sentence. The apples are lying on the table and they are bad. We have a that as a relative pronoun. Oops. We have a that as a relative pronoun. So this that is subject pronoun or object pronoun. That is referring to the apples or to being bad. The apples that are lying on the table. Who or what is lying on the table? Isn't this just a description of the apples? The apples, you can understand the sentence like this. The apples, forget the purple part, are bad. Can't you understand this? The apples are bad. A simple version of the sentence. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Now, the apples are lying on the table. So this that is referring to what? To the apples or to the table?
The apples.
Yeah, let's paint this blue. Okay, the blue part is kind of the main clause. Now, the second clause here is describing the apples, and the apples happen to be the subject of the apples are bad. Do you understand? So that is a subject or an object pronoun?
Object.
I didn't hear that there was a cut down.
The
Again,
object.
it's the subject pronoun. Why is it the subject pronoun? Vamos pensar comigo aqui. Eu construí dois períodos. The apples that are lying on the table are bad. Esse that are lying on the table descreve the apples, tá? Ele diz sobre quais apples eu estou falando, sobre quais maçãs eu estou falando. Aquelas que estão sobre a mesa. Ok. Vamos então dividir esse período longo em dois períodos curtos, em duas orações, two clauses. The apples are bad, clause number 1. Esse that substituo por the apples are lying on the table. Olha o que eu fiz. Traz o azul para cá. The apples are bad. The apples are lying on the table. Analisa a função de the apples nessa oração aqui, grifada. Qual é a função de the apples aqui? Sujeito. Agora, voltando à estrutura, eu me recordo, então, que essa frase toda aqui descreve o sujeito de apples. E ela é introduzida por esse pronome relativo. Esse pronome relativo pode ser substituído por the apples, que na oração principal é o sujeito. Por isso que se trata de subject pronoun. Ficou claro isso aqui? Quer que explique de novo? Raíssa, Delci, quem mais está aqui? Deixa eu ver. Eu não consigo ver todos que estão aqui. Alguém tem dúvida sobre isso? Felipe, Delciane, Slane?
Se eu pudesse dar uma explicadinha de novo.
De novo, vamos lá. Vamos para a estratégia que eu usei. Vamos voltar para a frase original. A frase original é The apples that are lying on the table are bad. My focus is to discover the reference for the pronoun that. So this is my intention here. That. What does this that refer to? So let's split the sentence into two clauses. First one, the apples. Cross this that out. The apples are lying on the table. This is the first, oops, sorry. The apples are lying on the table. This is the first thing I will transcribe down here. The apples are lying on the table. Now, what do I know by the apples? What I know by the apples, what I know about the apples is the second piece of information from the second clause. The same apples are bad. So this is clause number 2. So let's call it clause 1. And let's call this one clause 2. Now, I'm going to do this with a diagram in the original sentence, okay? So let me get rid of these colors. Let me uncross this that. Let me change the color here to automatic. Okay, the apples. I want clause number 2. Clause number 2 is in the external. Take a look at this dash. This slash, sorry. The apples are bad. Outside the slashes, the apples are bad. I have exactly clause number 2. Do you agree? The apples are bad. The apples are bad. Do you agree with this? So clause number 2 is in the external part. Now, inside the period, that are lying on the table, I have the second clause. The problem is the second clause is not exactly the same as the one I created. What is different here? Instead of the apples, which is the subject of this clause, I have a that. The apples are lying on the table, clause number 1. That are lying on the table. You see, this is that and the apples is the only difference. So look at the coincidence here. The apples are lying on the table. The apples is the subject for this orange clause. The apples is also the subject for this blue clause. So this that here, the apples here appears as a kind of substitution for that. That equals the apples. It's the same as to say that from the original sentence equals the apples, which is equals, it's the same apples we are talking about, the apples in the blue sentence. Either in the blue sentence or in the orange sentences, in the orange sentence, apples, the apples is the subject of each clause. So that's why I say it's a subjective pronoun. Ficou entendido agora? Eu dividi a sentença em parte interna e externa. Essa daqui é a famosa oração explicativa, né? Ela te descreve o sujeito da oração principal. Ficou claro isso? Então, esse that, de that are lying on the table, eu fiz uma manipulação aqui, transformei o that para criar uma oração totalmente independente. Eu criei the apples are lying on the table. Não dá na mesma? The apples that are lying on the table. Foi só sumir com o pronome relativo e transformar pronome em substantivo, the apples. Na verdade, noun phrase, uma oração substantiva. The apples. Certo? The apples are lying on the table. Da onde eu concluí que that e the apples têm o mesmo referente. Só que the apples, tanto nessa oração, que era a oração subordinada, né? Como nessa oração principal, the apples are bad, the apples é sujeito em ambas. Portanto, esse that que retoma the apples só pode ser um pronome subjetivo. Entenderam agora? Se não entenderam, eu explico de novo. A gente discute até vocês entenderem. Tá tudo bem agora, gente?
Pra mim, sim.
Mais alguém com dúvida? Talvez a minha estratégia esteja um pouquinho complicada. Talvez, Felipe, você quer falar como você fez esse exercício? Você teve uma outra estratégia?
I mean, yeah, I do have a strategy, but it's gonna solve all the sentences. At the same time.
Great. So let's see yours. Okay. So this is just to subject, pronoun. Okay. Remember this. Let's see your screen, Felipe. Let's see your way of solving, because you don't have to do it my way. Okay, guys, you don't have to do it my way. You have to understand the functions, and you may find your way to do the exercises.
Well,
okay, let's see, Felipe.
In this specific case, we just have to pay attention to the elements in the sentence. We're talking about relative pronouns, so we're analyzing if the pronoun is either a subject or an object. So we just have to analyze the element that follows the pronoun in this case. So whenever we have any word that's not a verb after the pronoun, it's going to be an object. The pronoun, the relative pronoun, is going to be an object. If we have a verb, it's going to be the subject. It's simple as that. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Simple as it gets. For example, here we have I. I is not a verb. So the relative pronoun is the object. In the second one, we have danced, which in this case is a verb. So we can say that the pronoun is a subject.
She danced.
Yeah. Number 3.
That are.
That is a, are is a verb, so that is most likely the
subject pronoun. Okay, it's a good time for us to discuss
and so
strategies.
on.
Strategies and levels of understanding in the context of teaching. Okay, well, I'm teaching a college subject on morphosyntax. So I'm supposed to give detailed explanations, show the functions. But when you go to an English class for foreigners, you'd be the more didactical you can. It's the best to do. It's the best thing to do. What Felipe is doing here is what a good English teacher in a language institute would do to teach grammar as easy as possible, as simple as possible for a foreigner. Okay, for someone that is not going to be a linguist. Okay, this excess of details I'm trying to show you is more because of the kind of accuracy that is required from linguists. That's what you are going to be. Yeah, most of you are going to be linguists, either linguists or you're going to study literature. You see the difference in approach. It's because of the different classroom contexts. But I think Felipe's strategy is great. And this is the strategy that we use when we are trying to be understood the easiest way we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so using this strategy, we can find answers quickly. Let's take advantage of Felipe's sharing his exercise, and let's solve number 4. So, Raissa, can you try to solve number 4? The apples that we bought in the shop are bad. The apples that we bought in the shop are bad. Use Felipe's strategy if you feel more comfortable.
Okay, wait a minute.
And now after that, we have we. And we is another pronoun.
Desculpa, professor, porque a internet aqui tá muito lenta. Aí carregar o computador e o
Não,
celular
tá tudo
aqui.
bem. Tá tudo bem. Pode usar a projeção do Felipe, só para você ver lá. The apples that we bought in the shop are bad. Pelo teu feeling aí, pela estratégia, ou a minha ou a do Felipe, você acha que esse that se refere ao sujeito ou ao objeto? The apples that we bought in the shop are bad.
Analisar o that, né?
Isso.
That, como o senhor falou, that tá com uma... Ai. Porque como naquela hora o senhor falou, né, substituiu o the apples pelo they, aí meio que me confundi um pouco. Mas é a mesma coisa, continua subject,
Objetivo.
subjetivo.
Você vê alguma grande diferença entre a número 3 e a número 4, estruturalmente falando, ou não?
Não.
Alguém discorda? Alguém quer concordar? Delcy? Concorda com ela? Tá mais para subjetivo? Is this more subjective than objective? Can you see these two sentences, like these two clauses, like the apples are bad? We bought the apples in the shop. Is it? We bought the apples in the shop. The apples are bad. Which apples? The apples that we bought in the shop. Those we bought in the shop. Felipe, what do you think?
I guess
And
that
use your...
in this case, we're talking about an objective pronoun, simply because the element that comes after the pronoun is not a verb. So here, we is a pronoun.
Okay.
So if it's a pronoun, we're talking about the object. I mean,
so yes, the question is, who bought the apples? We did. We is the subject pronoun. And that, what did we buy? The apples. So that is this what, this thing that we bought. Now, if yes, Felipe, sorry.
I was actually gonna talk about the fifth example to mention the other strategy I told you about, which is I sort of deconstruct, or I don't know, break down the relative clause into two previous ideas, like imagining what the original sentences were. For example, we will stay at a hotel, which is not far. So I kind of imagine what the original sentences were like. We will stay. Probably the first sentence was, we will stay at a hotel. We have which is not far from the beach, and then here we have which is not far from the beach. Is probably talking about
the hotel is not far from the beach.
We will stay at a hotel. The hotel is not far from the beach. And then I analyze I analyze the element that's being replaced by the relative pronoun, which in this case is the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And then in this sentence, the hotel is a
Subject.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the pronoun. So the hotel is not far from the beach. And then we can say that in the first sentence, the relative pronoun is a subject as well. That's the other strategy I use sometimes, but mostly the first one, analyzing the element that comes after the
Okay.
pronoun.
So going back to the just the number 4. So is it clear, Raissa, why it's subject? Although the structure is pretty similar to number 3, in number 3 it's subject, and in number 4 it's object, because there is a
No.
pronoun we that's performing the action bought. Okay, so the apples that we bought in the shop are bad. So the apples are bad. Which apples? Those that we bought in the shop. We bought. We did the action. The apples are the object. Okay, and that's why. Number 5, you think it's a subject pronoun. Is it? Felipe demonstrated us that number 5 is a subject pronoun, and he has shown the strategy. Did you get his explanation? Did you get his strategy? So we will stay at a hotel. The hotel is not far from the beach. Clause number 1, we will stay in a hotel. Clause number 2, the hotel is not far from the beach. The hotel is not far from the beach. Subject, the hotel, which is referring to the hotel. If the hotel is the subject, which is a subject pronoun. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, let's go to number 6. We will stay at a hotel which my friend has recommended to us. Wow. And now, what do you think? Again, we have the which. Subject or object? We will stay at a hotel which my friend has recommended to us. So again, clause number 1, we will stay at a hotel. My friend recommended us a hotel. Focus in clause number 2. My friend recommended us a certain hotel. So hotel here in the second sentence, in the second clause, is subject or object? My friend recommended me a hotel.
Object.
It's the object. Felipe, is it? How did you solve this one?
It is the
It's
the
objective pronoun, right?
Yeah.
Can you write it beside just for us to follow? Okay. Did you follow the same strategy, Felipe?
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll let you the other 7, 8, 9, and 10 because they are pretty much the same. Okay. You have an answer key. Okay. At the last page, but just look at the answer key to feel comfortable about your answers. I'm pretty sure you are able to analyze all of them without an answer key. I'd like to discuss with you now. We have discussed relative clauses. We have discussed these relative pronouns. I think by now you know what coordinators and subordinators are. Clauses are coordinated when each side of the sentence has an independent meaning. If one of them depends on the second part or on the previous part, they are subordinated. Okay, so you have a main clause and a subordinate clause. The connectors of subordinated clauses are called subordinators. The connectors of coordinated clauses are called coordinators. You all know that. Now I'd like to talk about another very important element in sentences, which are the verbs. And the verbs, they have form and shape, okay? And form and shape here in our morphosyntactical language is not exactly the same. Okay, so I'll share the slides here with you and talk about verbs. Today I will start an introduction on verbs, and then next class we will continue seeing verbs. So verbs, the first thing that should know about verbs is that they have inflection. Remember when we studied morphology and we discussed inflectional morphemes? Do you remember that? Inflections for gender, inflections for number, and
Yes.
also inflections for verb agreements. So verbs have a number of inflectional forms that are permitted or required in various grammatical constructions. So first, think about verbs. They are inflected according to the setting, to the context that they happen. So for example, the present tense form takes, yet let's consider the verb to take. The present tense of to take is takes. Takes, for example, can occur as the verb of a canonical clause, whereas the past participle taken cannot. Why not? Because canonical clauses are never passive. Okay? So it is grammatical to say she takes care, but it's ungrammatical. Whenever you see an asterisk like this, it means ungrammatical. It is ungrammatical to say she taken care. I cannot put any verb inflection the way I wish in a sentence. I should look at the sentence, decide the verb tense, and use the appropriate verb inflection. Choose the appropriate verb form to have tense and number concordance. So this is the very first thing. Now, the great majority of verb lexemes have 6 inflectional forms as illustrated. And when I mean forms, I'm talking about coincidences like the simple past and the participle. The past participle, sometimes they are coincident, aren't they? Sometimes they are just a final ed, but they are different inflectional forms. Because you learned in morphology that the final ed in I watched the movie yesterday, this final ed in watched is not the same final ed as in I have watched a very nice series, because the second one is present perfect. And then they are just homophones, but they are different morphemes. If they are different morphemes, they are different forms, because morphemes mean word form. Okay, so in English, we have basically 6 inflectional forms for the verbs. Now, what are these forms? They are these 6 here. The preterite, the third singular present, the third person singular present, the plain present, the plain form, which basically textbooks call the infinitive without to, the gerund or participle, they are grouped in the same group here, the gerund participle, and the past participle. So we have 2 participles, gerund, ing, and past participle, ed. Okay, so the preterite. The preterite is what you already know by simple past. Okay, she checked the figures herself. This is a simple past sentence, and the verb checked is inflected with a final ed. We call this inflection here the preterite. Look, the shape, the spelling, the pronunciation is the same as in past participle, but it's not the same form. It's not the same inflectional form, okay? So make a distinction between form and shape from this very basic moment. The third singular present, you all know. He teaches, she plays, she goes, he walks, and so on. She checks the figures herself. So this final S, this morpheme, this inflection here is the inflection that we call third person singular present. The plain present is basically this one that is like simple present, but not for third person. You see? It's simple present for all the other pronouns. So the plain present is a kind of broader, let's use this metaphor of third singular present. Plain present is a present verb, a verb in the present, which is not third person. So check. They check the figures themselves. The plain form can be sometimes confused with the plain present, but they are different instances. Although you have the same spelling, check and check, okay, they are different instances. Let's see the context of application of the plain form. She may check the figures herself. He can go to the movies tonight. They might stay home if it rains. As you see, there is always a modal verb like may, might, can, could, should, ought to, preceding the plain form. The plain form is the same as to say the infinitive without to. The plain form of to go is go. The plain form of to walk is walk. The plain form of to study is study. I may study math this afternoon. Plain form. They studied math this afternoon. Preterite. She studies math every day. Third person singular. They study a lot of geography. Plain present. You see the difference? Don't worry, don't panic. We'll see each of these 6 forms into details. We'll go deep into them. Now, the gerund participle is what you are used to when you construct continuous verb tenses like present continuous or future continuous. Okay, so you use this ing as a participle, okay, for the verb to check, preceded by the verb to be, to give the idea of a continuous action. At the moment I speak, something is happening, okay? Or at a certain moment of the future, something will be happening. This is future continuous. And past participle, which is normally preceded by the auxiliary have, or its inflections like have gone, had gone, like past participle, like past perfect, had been, and so on. Basically, I want you to understand that forms do not have anything to do with the spelling. They have to do with the morpheme we are talking about. So you should go back to morphology, remember the concept of morpheme, of homophony and allomorphs, and consider that checked preterite and checked past participle are nothing but homophones, but they are different morphemes. They are different inflectional forms, and we have 6 of them. Is this clear? Do you have any questions about this? Are you still there? Hello?
Yeah, it's okay.
Good. Yeah, sometimes it's good to receive just some confirmations so you understand this, I suppose. Now, although we have distinguished 6 different forms, there are only 4 shapes. You see now the difference between form and shape? Form refers to the morpheme, and shape refers to the spelling. You see, we have 6 different forms: preterite, third person singular, plain present, plain form, gerund participle, and past participle. 6, but 4 shapes: checked, which is the same for preterite and past participle; checks, third person; check, which is the same for plain form and plain present; and checking, which is the gerund participle. So we have 2 coincidences: preterite and past participle, and plain present and plain form. So you probably realize by now that these 2 coincident forms, or these 2 coincident shapes, I'm sorry, is what may lead you to confusion. So you should keep special attention, pay special attention to these shapes, coincident shapes between plain form, plain present, and preterite past participle. Preterite past participle, you can make a distinction looking for the auxiliary verb have. Plain form and plain present, you should look for the modal verb before it. If there is a modal verb before it, it's probably the plain form and not the plain present.
Plain form, the plain form generally appears after verbs too, right?
Yeah, generally it's preceded by another verb, normally a modal. So the plain form is what textbooks for foreigners have consecrated to call the infinitive without to, or
They
the
also call
infinitive
it,
of the verb. Yeah.
they also call it bare infinitive.
Yeah. So depends on the literature. They change the naming, but the concept is the same. It's something that is preceded by a modal verb. Okay, so the plain form is identical with lexical base of the word. Okay, the plain form of to go is go. The plain form of to stay is stay. The plain form of to walk is walk. The plain form of to study is study. It's not inflected with tense. Okay, it's not in the present. Thus, it's in the plain form. If it's not inflected, it does not make sense to say it is in the present. A verb in the present is inflected in the present, although it looks like it's not, because there is a coincidence between the plain form and the plain present. But when I say Felipe studies English at UFMA, the inflection is evident because I'm using third person. If I say Felipe and Delciani study English with me, well, the verb is to study. In the sentence, the verb is study, but this verb is inflected in the present. Now, when I say after his undergraduate degree, Felipe may study English abroad. This other study of may study is the plain form. It has no tense, at least isolated. It is just the base form of the verb without the to, okay? The plain present, on the other hand, is inflected for tense. And it's also identical with the lexical base. Here lies the problem. Because both of them are identical with the lexical base. What is the lexical base of study? To study. When I say lexical base, I mean the inverted commas, name of the verb. Okay? So usually the plain present indicates present time, used in present tense and in either plural, first person, and second person. So if there is a person practicing this, then, okay, now if there's a modal verb before it, it tends to be plain form. If there's no modal verb, it is plain present. The verb to be, our friend be, is an exception since first person always also differs. So all verbs have two forms in the present. One for I, you, and the plural persons, we, you, they, and another one for he, she, it. Most verbs are like these. Be is an exception because be has a special form for I. So the first person is also different, okay, in the plain present. So I am is plain present, okay? Did you get the difference between plain form and plain present? Plain form, infinitive without to. Plain present is what is used in present simple. The kind of construction that you use in present simple. And be, all of them have two forms, but be has three, because first person for be is different from the others. Questions about this? So we'll touch this point, this difference between plain form and plain present with some exercises in the future. Now, what is the difference between shape and form? By shape, we mean the spelling or pronunciation. Does the preterite and past participle of the lexeme check have the same shape, but they are different forms? As do the plain present tense and the plain form. This is true to all regular verbs. All regular verbs will have a coincidence between the preterite and the past participle, and also a coincidence between the plain present and the plain form. Okay, this is true for all regular verbs. I'd say this blue one, even with irregular verbs. When we talk about our regular verbs, I'm talking about the similarities of preterite and past participle for regular verbs. So if you take a look, you will see this coincidence. I won't spend time doing this because for sure you are going to watch the class again or have access to the slides and you can compare. So there are a good number of irregular verbs where the preterite and past participle do not have the same shape. Look here. The preterite here is took. She took the message. But the past participle is the message was taken by her. You see? Now the coincidence is not present anymore for irregular verbs, okay? And then I'd say that it's very easy to decide whether any particular instance of the shape check is a preterite form or a past participle. What you need to do is ask which form of the verb, like take, of a verb like take, would be needed in the construction in question. Just consider this. She may have checked the figures herself. Is this preterite or participle? Well, let's see. Let's use an irregular verb instead. Because check, checked, checked, it's regular, so we have a coincidence between preterite and past participle. Let's put a take, a verb to take, which is an irregular verb, instead in the sentence. She may have taken. So this is a case of participle. Não sei se vocês pegaram aqui o macete, mas eu peguei um verbo regular, substituí por um irregular para saber, isso aqui está no particípio ou está no pretérito? Como que eu vou saber? Põe um verbo irregular aqui. O que resultou do verbo irregular? Um particípio ou um pretérito? Portanto, a regra também se aplica ao regular. So, if the verb was to take here instead of to check, the construction would be taken and not took. Okay? So, it's a past participle, and checked here is also a past participle. Let me erase this pen. Now, consider this. I'm not sure whether she checked the figures herself or not. Do it on your own. Is this past participle or preterite? Put an irregular verb instead. Se a gente usar a regrinha com take aqui, se a gente substituir to check por to take, isso aqui vai dar um preterite ou um participle? I'm not sure whether she took the figures herself or not, or whether she taken the figures herself or not. Not sure whether she took or whether she taken. Para usar taken, eu tenho que ter o quê? Ou uma voz passiva, ou um verbo auxiliar, não é? E que verbo auxiliar seria esse? Vamos lá, gente, pelo feeling de vocês. Aqui vai um took ou um taken?
Took.
Took, okay? So, I'm not sure whether she took the figures herself or not. Portanto, eu tenho aqui um caso de verbo no pretérito. Is this a preterite or a participle?
Preterite.
It's a preterite. Para que fosse um participle, eu precisaria ter um have aqui como auxiliar, ou eu precisaria ter uma construção em voz passiva para poder usar um particípio passado. Parece um pouco complicado isso aqui. Na verdade, é só um macete. Você não sabe se é pretérito ou se é particípio? Troca por um verbo irregular bem conhecido. Muda o verbo, põe um irregular e verifica o que dá. Né? É só um macetezinho. Para alguns pode ser um macete, para outros pode complicar um pouquinho. Pode, em vez de ajudar, atrapalhar. Só filtra isso. Só fica com isso quem achar que facilitou. Tá? O que eu estou tentando mostrar aqui é a diferença entre form e shape. Form diz respeito ao morfema. Shape diz respeito à escrita. Eu tenho mais forms do que shape, porque eu tenho alguns homofônios aí. Eu tenho 2 pares de homofônio, o pretérito e particípio, e o plain form e plain present. Por hoje, sobre verbos e inflexão verbal, eu acho que é só. Se vocês puderem rever esse conteúdo para fixar essas noções, eu acho que vai ajudar vocês já para a próxima aula a gente continuar discutindo verbos. Correto, pessoal? Alguém tem alguma dúvida sobre essa questão de diferença entre form e shape? É a principal coisa para hoje. Ficou claro o que é verb form e verb shape? Porque tem 4 de um e 6 do outro. Vocês ainda estão acordados e vivos?
It's okay, it's okay.
Okay, so we meet again on Thursday, okay? I hope in a better computer, okay? I'm not at home today, so I hope in the usual computer. And I wish you a very good morning, okay? And a very good week. I don't know if you have a next class. If you do, have a nice next class, right?
Thank you. Have a nice week.
Okay. Recording will be available as soon as possible.